Okay, so now we're going to cover how to complete a listing loop and the forms pertaining to those listing documents. So again, we had David Ortiz as our buyer. So we're now going to add a new loop, and this is going to be for a seller. So we are not going to label it with the seller's name. We always label it with the seller's property address. Click continue. We're going to click listing loop versus buying loop. This will pre-populate your loop with the correct forms. Click done. Now we're going to go view the loop. So again, this loop will look a little bit different than the buying loop because the forms required to represent someone selling their property are different. Up top, again, you're going to have the training and process guide, which will walk you through step by step how to complete these forms that we're going to go over today. And then below, you have the required forms that need to be in the file. So again, you're always going to have to do a mandatory licensee consumer relationship disclosure, whether you're representing a buyer or a seller. You're going to have to do the lead paint notification form. And you're also going to have to do an exclusive listing agreement. So that exclusive listing agreement is going to be the first form you complete along with the mandatory licensee consumer relationship disclosure. So those two forms are the ones we're going to go over in this training. The next training, we will cover how to complete the property transfer lead paint notification. So if you click on the mandatory licensee consumer relationship disclosure, this is very similar to how to complete this for a buyer. So again, we're just going to look to add a person for our seller. So we'll be selling Tom Brady's property. He is our seller. We're going to add that person. Obviously, we will usually complete the rest of their information, add their email, phone, address. And this form will be the exact same as the one we covered previously. So again, the seller's agent piece is already checked. Designated agency representing the seller is already checked. All you're going to have to do is complete the bottom of this form, fill out your name, your license number, check salesperson if you're a salesperson, add the date, sign the form. For all of your clients, just print their name. Seller is already checked, fill out the date, and then remember to share this form with them. So you will go up to the right-hand side here, you'll save and share it, and then that will share automatically with your client. Okay, so we're going to go back and then we're going to cover how to fill out a listing agreement. So the form we always ask our agents to complete for their listing agreements is the exclusive listing agreement with consent to designated and dual agency. There are various listing agreement forms that are put out by the Massachusetts Association of Realtors, the Greater Boston Association of Realtors, but this is the one we want to use. It's very important because we are asking that the client upfront consent to designated agency and dual agency, meaning that you as the agent will be the only ones representing them in terms of being a designated agent. And then dual agency means they are consenting as to allow you to bring in a buyer and represent that buyer as well in a dual agency situation. So if you were to find yourself in a dual agency situation, this form already gives you the consent to be able to do that. And then all you would have to do to enter into dual agency is provide your client a notice of dual agency since you already received consent. So again, this is the best listing agreement form to complete. So again, you're going to want to fill out all of your client's information here. So this form will autofill as much as possible. So your seller, we already have is Tom Brady. So we're just going to autofill that one piece. At the top of the form, it's going to have your client's name, who they're allowing to represent them. So this is always the broker. So you're always going to fill out Full Circle Realty LLC, a real estate broker. And then you're going to fill out all of the property information. So again, you're going to fill out the address, the registry of deeds, so the county that the property is registered in, recorded in, the book and page number, so that you have a very specific description of the property you're selling for your client. So as you scroll down, this first section goes over the seller's duties and representations. At the bottom, there's a new section of this form that talks about having recording devices in the seller's property. So the seller has to acknowledge that they do or do not have recording devices within their property, and it lets them know that it is illegal to record potential buyers of their property without that buyer's consent. So if they do have recording devices and they want to keep those devices recording when you have open houses or when you're showing the property to a buyer, you have to receive the buyer's consent to that recording before showing them the property. Section 2, you're going to spell out the listing price. So we're going to say, I think Tom Brady's property was $39 million. So that's what we're going to list the property at. The listing period in Section 3 is going to cover when you can list the property, and then when this agreement comes to an end. So typically you see a 90 to 180 day period here. The longer the better, because this allows you to remain contractually obligated to list this property. Whereas if you have a very short period of time and the seller wants to move away from you as their representative, they can do that once this time period expires. So in this instance, we'll say we're going to start today on the 1st of September, and then we're going to end it on 31 December of this year. Section 4 lays out the broker's fee that's going to be received. So this is the total broker's fee, not just what you're going to receive representing the seller, but it's also going to include what you are going to provide to the buyer's side. So it's the total broker's fee. So this is a negotiable amount. There's no preset or predetermined amount, but in this instance, we'll put 5% of the sale price. And then you're going to continue down and you're going to fill out the rest of this section. We're not going to go into too much detail there. Section 5 is going to talk about how much you are going to offer as broker cooperation compensation to a buyer's agent. So typically it's co-broked 50-50, but it does not have to be that way. So if we put 2.5% here, that would mean of the 5% spelled out in Section 4, you'd be offering 2.5% or half of that to the buyer's agent. You do not have to put 2.5%. So if you want to offer 3%, you can do that, but that would then mean in turn you would receive 2% on your end. Again, these are all negotiable numbers. They are not predetermined or preset. You can also spell out if you're going to offer any compensation to facilitators on a deal. These are non-agent representatives of the parties. In this instance, we're going to offer 0% of the selling price. If you do want to do this, talk to Chris or I beforehand. This is not something that's overly common, and we would need to talk to you about the implications of offering non-agent compensation. Section 6, you're going to just spell out the multiple listing service that you're going to post this on. In Massachusetts, we use MLS PIN, so the Property Information Network, so you'd spell that out. Section 7 is going to be that consent to dual to designated agency I mentioned before. So this is going to be where you specify which individuals are acting as designated agents. So you would put your name down here, and anybody else that you're working with that would be a designated agent for this client. Section 8 is that consent to dual agency. So this gives the seller's consent to allow you to enter into dual agency situations. This, if this occurs, again, you have to receive a signed notification of dual agency document from your seller as well. You're going to need that on the buyer side. Whatever buyer you end up bringing into the deal, you're going to need to receive the buyer's consent to dual agency on a separate form and a buyer's notification of dual agency. In Section 9, you're going to lay out any additional terms that are going to be part of this listing agreement. And then at the bottom, you're going to date it. And then you're going to have your seller sign on the right-hand side. And then you will sign on the left-hand side. This can also be signed by Chris or I as the broker or authorized representatives. So you can bring us in at any point you need with this form to have us sign it. This will be your listing agreement that you're going to keep on file. This will allow you to start marketing the property for your client. Without this signed, you cannot move forward representing them in any type of capacity.